Hi guys, it's Hella again for part 3 of Hanukkah and the modernisation and Christmasisation, and also an alternate history. Oh, I love these things. We've got to get through the alternate history to get to the modernisation. Yeah, get your waders on, this is fun. Right, so the most commonly told version of the Hanukkah story is that of the Maccabees, heroically saving Judaism from the oppression of the Greek Hellenistic regime, and it's in part 1 of this series. But the historical record is, as usual, a little bit more complex. The most detailed accounts of the story don't actually come from the Hebrew Bible. They come from the Catholic canon. Yes. First and Second Maccabees and the Maccabean revolt appears to have its clearest and strongest roots in the Catholic Bible. Yeah, I know. I scratch my head that much. I swear I've got a few bald spots. Luckily enough, my hair's an animal onto its own, so it regrew pretty quick. And it gets stranger than that. Apparently, lawless men came forth from Israel and misled many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the Gentiles round about us." So they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem according to the Gentile custom and removed the marks of circumcision. How on earth do you remove a circumcision? But never mind. And abandoned the holy covenant. They joined the Gentiles and sold themselves to do evil. If they came from Israel, they weren't Greek. So, this is according to First Maccabees. This, from the very start, doesn't sound like a Greek war against the Jews, but more like a Jewish civil uprising where some Jews, for whatever reason, wanted what the Greeks had, so decided to work with them to reform Jewish culture and tradition. Doesn't it? They built a gymnasium. That's a no-no. And I do mean a no-no. According to the old Jewish ways, you need a circumcision. How do you remove the mark of a circumcision? You've literally lost a chunk of skin. How does that suddenly regrow? Just asking. This was surgery days. They couldn't have their double chin moved. Just saying. What else? They went into a covenant with the Gentiles. So they were working together with them. They abandoned the Holy Covenant, as in, according to this, they turned their back on Judaism and they sold themselves to do evil. So they turned themselves even more against Judaism. I think they tried for modernisation personally. Now, Hellenistic culture was based on the Greek language, literature, art, philosophy, as well as polis. Yes, that is the word that we get police from. Like most of Europe uses some version of polis for police, like polizia, polizi, polis, police. The Irish use garda, guard, slightly different to police. I'll tell you, right? Which is a Greek social and political organisation. You see? Police are a social and political organisation. Makes sense. They uphold politics and work with the people to uphold the politics. And it's the politics that makes the law. Police. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's where we get the word. But the Hellenistic culture also included things like Greek gods, obviously a no, customs and traditions, and athletic contests, which were completely incompatible with Judaism. I had a Jewish friend, and he told me, and it was really kind of confusing to me because I am very heavily DIY orientated. A Jewish man should never pick up a tool. He doesn't pick up a tool because then he's... Why does a Jewish man want to pick up a tool? I'm sitting there going, you're like some of the best jewelers in the world. That involves a lot of tools. You're lying to yourselves if you think that because your hammer is teeny tiny and used for setting precious stones into precious metals, that it's any different to the ones that I use to make bookcases. Just saying. Just saying. But no, like putting these shelves up, me and my husband did it, because obviously 2-person job. Well, that one's easy, but if you see the big one at the top, yeah, there is no way that somebody who is 5'5" could do that all on their own, right? A Jewish person can't do that because that is beneath them. Now, that makes me sound like I'm being horrible, but you've got to think they've been used for slaves numerous times throughout history. And athletic competitions, going to the gym now is seen as a good thing, obviously. But going to the gym then was the same as being put in a gladiator ring. As far as that mindset is, same as putting up your own shelves is the same as making like the Pharaoh's pyramids or whatever they had to do during Egyptian slavery. I don't know. Apparently slaves didn't make the pyramids, artisans did. But you know what I mean. It's that kind of mindset. So I'm just pointing that out, why they were so against gymnasiums. Because these days, Jews can actually be fairly healthy. They've got quite a good Olympic record going on, which is even more fun, going by this version. So, we've got some Jews who want parts of the Greek culture integrating with their own. They've built a gymnasium. They're trying to bring more of the philosophy in, more of the polis in, more of the art in, more of the literature in. Maybe not the language so much, although I imagine quite a few of them did speak quite a bit of Greek. Jews are actually known for being very flexible on their languages, to the point it actually irks me. Most of the Jews I've known speak at least 2 languages fluently. If not, I think one of them spoke like 5. It was English, German, Hebrew, whatever language is spoken in Palestine, and then is it Iranian or something like that. There's like 2 Middle Eastern like languages, and he spoke all of them just fluently, and I'm just like, I'll just sit over here and I can barely say my own name. Bye. Yeah, so I'm sure they could speak Greek fairly easily. I doubt that they were going to sit there and burn their own temple down somehow, but people didn't like it. So these new wave Hellenistic Jews got the ire of the Maccabees just as much and as brutally as the Greeks did. Now, I keep saying Greeks because I can't say Seleucid, so I'm just saying Greeks. It was an era, and it began with an S, and I can't say it. Again, First Maccabees says, they organised an army and struck down sinners in their anger and lawless men in their wrath. The survivors fled to the Gentiles for safety. So in other words, any of the new wave Jews, the hippie Jews, that weren't killed by the Maccabees had to run to the Greeks, the Greek settlements, and pretty much seek asylum, and probably had to turn their back on their religion, which wasn't the aim of anything at any point, because the Maccabees had been so horrific to them. Can you imagine that? I can. We'll get on to that. So, yeah, in this version, the Maccabees were not the heroes saving Judaism from the Hellenistic scourge, but religious zealots who were afraid of change and progress. See where I'm getting a bit smarmy, and why this wasn't linked up with any other videos. Right? If this were to happen today, instead of heroes, the Maccabees would likely be looked at in a similar vein to any group of fundamentalists, and quite probably be called terrorists. Seriously think about it. Right? Think about the Taliban. They want things to go back old school. Like old school. That's exactly what the Maccabees were doing to the Jews in Jerusalem. A little bit of ankle and you're likely to get a bullet in your head. Going to school and you're likely to get a bullet in your head if you're a woman in Taliban lands. This is the modern equivalent of what the Maccabees were doing to the Jews in Jerusalem. If they took on any part of the modern culture, that was it. They were sinning. They turned their back on their God and all that they stood for, and they were to be wiped out. It's a bit of a spin on it, isn't it? So, strangely enough, this isn't a version that is taught to children. The heroic version is, and fair enough, history is written by the victors, and so the victors get to tell their story. We are used to this. That's what happens. That is honestly what happens. It shouldn't be, but it is. And of course, this is religious history, so this is even more oppressive and repressive than standard history. So the point I am trying to make here is not look at Judaism, it lies. It's look at Hanukkah. No, seriously, look at Hanukkah. Because the Maccabees really wouldn't like modern Hanukkah at all. Especially if this modern Catholicized version of the brutal Maccabees is the truth, or anything close to the truth. They didn't like change. They wanted everything to stay the same for forever and a day. Imagine if they saw a mobile phone. Right? They make the Amish, you know, you sit there and you take the mickey out of the Amish. The Amish at least know what a telephone is, what a TV is. They may not have them in their homes. They may not use them, but they know what they are and that they exist. They just choose not to have a part in that. And yes, they may ignore you if you were Amish and you turn your back on being Amish, but they're still Amish. You're just ex-Amish, right? These Jews couldn't do that. Instead of you're just ex-Amish, they'd kill them. It's like honour killing. Don't like honour killings. So now I'm going to delve into the American side of Hanukkah more here, because although it's celebrated globally, America is where Hanukkah has really made its mark, and where the Maccabees have been really, really knocked. So according to American religious historian Diane Ashton, American Jews have transformed Hanukkah from a small, intimate family gathering and actually quite minor religious festival, and updated it over the past 2 centuries. Apparently, they were inspired by the children's events in the churches for Christmas. So in the 19th century, the rabbis started introducing similar celebrations and activities in synagogues. They tell the story of Hanukkah, light candles, sing hymns, and hand out sweets. Over time, Hanukkah became one of the few times a year when many Jewish families went to the synagogue, probably actually due to the brutal working conditions of those times and the times following that. I'm not going to lie, the way it's written in the article I got this from, it's like they just lost interest. But if you timeline it, I'm thinking Industrial Revolution type timeline, like that would be the start of it. They probably didn't go quite so often because they were working every single day, 12, 14, 16-hour days. Not really their fault. Nobody had time for religion. In the early 20th century, with the commercialisation of Christmas well underway, Hanukkah began to get more commercialised. Gift giving, not a Hanukkah tradition, became common, especially amongst immigrants who wanted to signify economic success. The Orthodox Jewish movement, or Hasidic Jews, Hasidic, have been very big in promoting public displays of menorahs as a way to both bring Jews closer together and build community. Even in more modern times, Hanukkah has intermingled with Christmas to the point that Christians and Jews will get together for each other's public ceremonies. The White House has a Hanukkah reception each year, and it's quite common for households of each religion to have decorations for the other celebration. Celebrations go on around the world, but it's only in the US that we find this level of integration, and yet they both manage to keep their festivals nicely separated, no matter how entwined they become. And that is actually really quite beautiful. If we could do that around the world with like everything, that would be awesome. You know, we've got 2 festivals side by side. We celebrate them publicly together, but then separately when we're at home or in our places of worship. That is lovely. That is how you should do it. But the thing is, if that Catholicized version of the Maccabees is true, they would be knocked. Can you actually imagine that? They didn't want anything to change. And now they're like, Jews are making friends with Christians. Jesus hadn't even been born then, right? And, you know, I doubt that the Maccabees would have accepted Jesus as the one true Messiah somehow. So I doubt that they'd like the fact that Jews are getting on with Christians. And not only that, I doubt that they'd like the fact that presents are getting given, because that's a Christmas thing. I doubt the fact that they'd like anything really to do with the modern tradition. I really do doubt it. So that's why I think it's kind of funny how far Hanukkah has come. I mean, around the world there are public lighting displays and things like that. The one about, you get them in Moscow, and when I think of Moscow, I do not think of publicly lighting menorahs. I'm sorry, Moscow. It's not a diss, I just don't. So that actually made me feel quite proud of you guys. So that is a rarity. Unless it's about larders. I love larders. The atmosphere doesn't, but I do. So yeah, it's like, if that brutal story, it's true, about Maccabees just turning tail on their own kind just because they don't like them. That is evil. That really is evil. But then again, it's happened time and again throughout time. I mean, I live in England. Catholicism and Protestantism. Busy mates. Busy mates. We've not had civil wars or anything. In fact, a king didn't actually make up the Church of England just so that he could get rid of a wife. And then he kept marrying Catholics and wondering why his kids hated him. I wonder. Anyway, so now we have in video 1 the backstory as it's usually told, video 2 the traditions, and video 3 the backstory as you very rarely hear it and how it's gone modern. And all because I wanted to know what the oil miracle was when I was doing the festivities for November. Sorry, not sorry. I'm sure you'll forgive me one day. Have fun and know your power. Bye.